The death of the ostrich cases, Mr. Justice, do you have any thoughts about the case not proceeding?
Obviously, we're pleased to see the decision of the Supreme Court.
Trust the science!
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden, and we're broadcasting to you live from the nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a lot of material to go through, and we've done a lot of research. We're continuing to talk about not only the Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, BC, but how this government continues to wage war against farms in general, especially those in Western Canada, and against agriculture and farmers. So we'll be back momentarily with a lot more.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
And we're doing it live. So we're going to be talking about the war in agriculture this morning, but even more so, we're going to be talking about the horrendous treatment that the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, has meted out to Universal Ostrich Farms. And I remain absolutely shocked. And we're going to be showing, I want to show this here. I'm going to start with this.
Way over to the left. So the shots sound like they're coming from way back, way behind the kill box. So I don't know why that is. They sound like way over to the left. I don't know if they're just the sounds ricocheting, maybe. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Can you hear them? It's quite loud here.
Okay, so if you weren't watching last night, there was a live feed from the farm. Here's what I'll recapitulate as much as I can because I had very little contact with Katie after the interview yesterday. She was very distraught, very upset, as you'll see. As you saw from the opening video, and we'll show some of that again, I don't find that easy to watch. Katie's a dear friend of mine now. It's very difficult to see her so distraught, weeping, pleading with the CFIA to stop killing her animals, her birds. That is difficult to watch. What happened last night is, once again, the cowardly, craven, ravenous CFIA were literally shooting the birds, and hundreds of bullets were expelled, according to the eyewitnesses. Does that mean the CFIA can shoot as well as they look after people, or they look after the animals? Probably. I don't think you could find a crack shot amongst them, but they were clearly shooting as many shells as they had at the birds last night. God knows how many they killed. Must have killed quite a few. Estimates from the eyewitnesses, the supporters, the people at the farm are saying there's maybe 100 birds left. Now, what did I say yesterday? What have I been saying for the last 4 weeks? The CFIA has been culling this herd already. The evidence is there, not conclusive. But indications are there that the CFIA has been up to this already. I think they knew what the Supreme Court was going to rule ahead of time. I think it was leaked to them by a source inside of the court, and they knew they were going to get away with this. because now, of course, they can get rid of every last bird and not have to account for how many they actually killed. They don't have to account for anything they do. They got away with harassing, lassoing, chasing, injecting the birds for the last 5 weeks. And the RCMP stood by and did absolutely nothing. Even when the farm formally brought forth charges, the RCMP has done nothing. They couldn't even respond. So these organizations are in cahoots with each other. They're in collusion with each other. This is clearly what's been going on. I've got more to show you about the shootings last night. But here's what has to happen, folks, before we get into the war on agriculture, the war on farms. The cover-up cannot allow to begin right now. And this is what the CFIA wants to do. The birds need to be tested. I'm echoing what Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun has said. And I've actually said this too before. The birds still need to be tested to prove the CFIA did this for absolutely no reason except politics. It had nothing to do with health. It had nothing to do with science. It had nothing to do with protecting the public. It had nothing to do with protecting the wildlife. It had nothing to do with protecting other birds or animals from avian flu. It had everything to do with the politics of the CFIA and the corrupt Carney government. That's what it had something to do with. That's what we're dealing with here. And the bird should still be tested, and we need to know how many birds are remaining, because the cover-up cannot allow to start now. We cannot allow the cover-up to begin now. Of course, that's what they want. Of course, that's what they want. I don't want them to get it. Does that mean I'm going to get my way? Probably not. So Katie was up all night long. I'm going to try to contact her later. I'm not going to bother her right now. She was gracious enough to come on the show yesterday, as distraught as she was, literally in tears. And she had to go through a whole day like that of watching her ostriches getting shot all night long by Canada's version of the NKVD. And if you're wondering what the hell the NKVD is, I'm sure most of you have a sense of history. That was Joe Stalin's, the Soviet Union's secret police that used to always destroy Stalin's enemies or imagined enemies with a shot to the back of the head. They were the version of the German SS and Gestapo. That's what the NKVD was. Our version in Canada is called the CFIA. Here's some more. Okay, I'm going to show this Sean Fraser clip. You know who Sean Fraser is, right? He's the housing minister who was an absolute failure at housing. He's the immigration minister who was an absolute immigration failure. He's now the Attorney General of Canada and the Justice Minister. Very, very important post in any government. I would say in terms of the importance in the Carney government, it's probably number 2 after finance in terms of cabinet positions that really matter, that have very great power that goes with them. So here's Sean Fraser, a dunce, a blockhead, a complete moron, talking about how the killing of healthy ostriches at a farm in BC is somehow something to do with science. I can't believe we have to put up with this in this country. No, that was right. Sorry.
Supreme Court has decided not to hear the death of the ostrich cases. Mr. Justice, do you have any thoughts about the case not proceeding to the Supreme Court and whether the ostriches should end?
Look, we obviously are pleased to see the decision of the Supreme Court. It's important that the Minister of Agriculture and CFIA are able to protect the health of the general Canadian public and of the food that we consume in the poultry industry as well. This is a decision that is following the science and evidence, and I'm sure my colleague who has conduct to file will have more to say today. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Obviously are pleased to see the decision of the Supreme Court. It's pleased to see the decision of the Supreme Court.
Trust the science!
Ignorant. Ignorant.
There's a state. I've got a comment on all three of these. That's the state of your RCMP today, where you've got some woman blowing kisses, basically saying, F off, kiss off. The hell with you and your rights and your ostriches and your animals and your farm and your anything you think you own. No, we own it. We're working for Mark Carney now. What an excuse for a police officer. What a goddamn excuse for a human being that woman is. Yeah, I'm not picking on her because she's a woman. I know there are capable female officers in the RCMP, just as there were in the military and are in the military. But this attitude is disgusting. It's repugnant. It's disgraceful. But it seems to be emblematic of the RCMP today. We work for Mark Carney. Go to hell. All right, back it up there. Sean Fraser talking about science. What does this moron know about science to begin with? Nothing going on here at Scientific, folks. Killing hundreds, God knows how many were left, hundreds of ostriches because they were healthy is not scientific. And the CFIA admitted as much by saying, we don't care if they're healthy. Even if we test them and find out they're healthy, we're still going to kill them because that's our policy. It's called stamping out. We kill them because we like to kill. That's what stamping out policy really means. It means we kill and we slaughter livestock because we enjoy it. We enjoy it, I think, because they seem to get their kicks out of it. And secondly, they enjoy it because it hurts the farms and the farmers a lot. Yeah. And it's destroying agriculture in Canada, and it's going to destroy the food supply so that you will no longer have your steak and eggs in the morning. No, because they're killing millions of birds like chickens. Price of eggs and poultry is escalating. The price of meat has already gone through the roof. Steak? You want your T-bone steak? Eat a cockroach. That's Mark Carney's globalist answer for you. What do you think they're up to here with destroying Canadian agriculture? They hate farmers because they're independent, self-motivated, landowners, independent-minded Canadians. That's the last thing Mark Carney wants to talk about or to talk with. Mark Carney hates those kind of people. Third thing I want to talk about, Katie Passatne has become the face of landowner rights, property rights in Canada, and I think for farmers. And that's what your science has done. Reduced a great woman like that to tears, kneeling, begging the CFIA to stop killing their livestock. That's what your science has done, even though there's no science behind it. Never has been. CFIA has refused to test them, refused to even count them. Oh, there could be 330, there could be 300. We're not sure because we can't count very well, just like we can't look after birds very well either. We don't know how to feed them. We don't know how to give them water or bedding or electrolytes when they're sick. All we know how to do is just sort of harass them and chase them around because we're a bunch of 5-year-olds in our mentality. And we really aren't very competent. We're just a death squad. What do you expect from a death squad? Competency? You expect us to administer health care to animals? We're not here for that. We're here to kill them. That has been the anthem of the CFIA and the RCMP since these idiots invaded and occupied this farm over 5 weeks ago. And now, of course, they're carrying through with their threats to kill every last bird on the farm. I don't know if it's going to be over today or not. I'll let you know. I'm going to keep watching it. I'm going to give Katie a call later. If she doesn't answer, I totally understand. I also have some other contacts on the ground there. I'll call them to see what's going on. Because I think this is one of the worst outrages in Canadian history. I'm not exaggerating this because I had some idiot in the comments section say, "You really cried over the ostriches, David?" Yeah, I cried over the ostriches. But I also cried for Katie, who's a dear friend. I cried for her mom and her family. And I cried for Canada. Because if this can happen to an ostrich farm, it can happen to a lot of other farms. And it can happen to you, to your backyard, your pets. And as we said the other day when we had an epidemiologist on the show to talk about where this is going, if it can happen to ostriches, it can happen to you and I. Because we could be just as dispensable, just as out of it as these birds were to this Carney government. And I see in the comments section somebody, I might get to the comments later. And if I'm rambling a bit today, because I am really upset about this and I'm upset by other Canadians who don't think this is about more than just one ostrich farm and hundreds of ostriches. And Katie was the first one. And I think there was never a time that I've spoken to her on this show when Katie didn't say, "Hey, it's not just about my farm. It's about farms across Canada, and it's about the freedom of Canadians, and it's about your property rights. It's about your right to own livestock. It's about your right to a livelihood. It's about government overreach. And ultimately, too, it's about the government's obsequious attitude towards big pharma, because this government does not want herd immunity to be exhibited by anything or anybody. It wants to buy the vaccine every time. Doesn't want natural antibodies. Hey, nobody makes money off of those. But big pharma is making billions, hundreds of billions of dollars off of these pandemics. Need I say more? Here's some more from the farm. Here's a bird's eye view from Rebel News got last night. Like I said, people are counting 100. Yeah. So a lot of people were saying yesterday there's maybe 100 birds left. Did they get them all last night? Well, the way these people are shooting, probably not. But it might go on for another night of hell for Katie and her family. They love it, though. They love to see people suffer. They're enjoying this so much. Just like that RCMP B, I'll put it that way, who had the gall to tell people to just kiss off. We don't give a damn. Here's some more action at the farm last night. And as I said, basically there's only two videographers, two independent journalists on the site. There's Chris Dacey, who's been there for, 6-7 weeks now. He's usually out in Ottawa on Wellington Street, chasing down errant politicians. Good job, Chris, when you've been out there. And great job last night, because you and Drea Humphrey of Rebel News were the only real reporters on scene who were taking pictures. And I should be there. But you can't be in two places at two times, and I think I've been serving a function here.
You can hear the yelling as CFIA spook and chase ostriches all around, aiming them into the kill pen. Oh man, this is gross. Why are they all male? This is absolutely disgusting. Yeah, chasing birds down the chute. Birds running. This is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. So that's what was going on last night. How else is the government of Canada, the Carney government, attacking farmers? I love this story here. This to me is just incredible, because we noticed this yesterday, and I think I might do a follow-up piece on this. But guess what the Carney government is that? You wonder why you don't have a chance anymore of getting a farm credit loan. Because if you're old, meaning I guess like over 40, and you're white, not a person of color, you probably won't be getting any money, because you've been getting too much money. There has to be more money for the LGBTQ farmers. Where are they? Well, I'm sorry, you can't sit on. You can't sit at a bar in O'Connor Street drinking and smoking yourself to death and also be a farmer. And those of you who know what I'm talking about will laugh at that. But it's Justina Hendricks has held various positions at Export Development Canada. Isn't that nice? EDC. Over the past 16 years, she was named EDC's Senior Vice President and Chief Corporate Sustainability Officer. Sustainable Business and Enablement. And what a title for that, 2019. Her leadership in advancing the organization's 10-year strategy ensured EDC continued to be a leader for Canada and its customers on environmental, social, and governance principles. Mrs. Hendricks also designed and executed EDC's Net Zero 2050 strategy. Isn't that wonderful? So what has she been charged with doing? Finding more LGBTQ and people of color in the farming community so she can dispense money to them. If you happen to be one of those, sort of traditional farmers, like everybody is, what the reality reflects, forget it. No money for you. You don't fit the narrative. And a lot of people are saying, we're going to be talking about the budget tomorrow. Some people have been saying, David, talk about the budget. Well, I'll talk about the budget tomorrow. We had other fish to fry this week. But you know what? Here's what nobody's talking about in the budget. And I'll get back to farmers in a minute. People say, Mark Carney's not as bad as Justin Trudeau. Remember how Justin Trudeau used to dispense so much money for the LGBTQ causes, for transgenderism, promoting transgenderism in the schools, and warring against parental rights and telling parents they have no right to know about pronouns in the classroom. That's up to your teachers. That's up to your kids. You have no right to know what your children are doing. And we're going to spend tens, hundreds of millions of dollars promoting that. People are saying, well, thank God Mark Carney's just focusing on the economy. BS. He is spending money on LGBT causes, and Monsieur Champagne, the finance minister, warned us about that about a week before the budget was tabled. Said, don't worry, folks, we're going to keep spending money on the LGBTQ community, just like Justin did. But he's going further. He's now limiting programs to people within that community. So if you're not a member of that community, you're not going to be eligible for services anymore. How far are they going to take this? Well, I'm sorry, the hospital isn't taking white males over 45 anymore. Don't you know how much healthcare costs? We need more LGBTQ people in the hospital. So, sorry, the beds are reserved. Yeah, the beds are reserved. Don't even bother to ask. You think it's funny, or you think I'm kidding? That's exactly where this could go. This is a government that wants you dead if you're not part of their narrative. If you're not part of the club, if you're saying, well, you know, I don't quite agree with that, that's too bad. I'm going to show this legendary picture. It's already legendary. Here is that wonderful police officer. I'd like to get her name. And if anybody out there, by the way, if you're watching from Edgewood, if you're watching from anywhere and you know who this officer is, let me know. I'd like to shame this officer. Yes, I'd like to put her name up and say, this is a horrible excuse for an RCMP officer and for a human being. I would love to do that. Because I think this is disgraceful behavior. And we don't need cops like this. We do not need police officers like this in the RCMP or any police force in this country. This is shameful. And how else is the CFIA and Ag Canada going after farmers? Well, how about that? Avian flu is broken out in at least 8 locations across BC's Fraser Valley this October. Oh, must have been those ostriches. According to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Sean Hall, a spokesman with the BC Poultry Association, spoke to the early edition about how the industry has evolved to deal with the regular occurrence of the disease. Oh, I guess we're going to have to vaccinate the animals and the animal workers. By the way, thank you to BC Barracuda or Barracuda Barbie for this. Have a look at her X posts. She's fantastic. She has been a great assistant throughout this whole episode at Edgewood. She's done invaluable research. She posts it. I've used it and used her material in the past, and she's had nothing but grief for it in the past for the work she does. And no, she's not in that pocket of any particular organization or politician. She's doing this for the public good. Thank you. And I'm not going to say your first name, even though I know it. But thank you, Barracuda Barbie. You are wonderful. And we're going to keep using your material. And so we're going to get to some slides now to tell you what a boondoggle this whole operation was in Edgewood, BC. I've said it before. We had Jerry Ritz, former Agriculture Minister Jerry Ritz, 8 years Ag Minister under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He was on the show, about 2.5 weeks ago. Jerry's an old friend. I knew him before he was a cabinet minister. He was an MP from Saskatchewan, Battleford, Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan. He was a ostrich farmer. And yeah, so he actually understood this. He was completely frank about his absolute abhorrence about what the CFA had become. And he knew it in his days as minister and said they were bad then. You had to read the Riot Act to the president every other week because they would not follow orders. They had their own agenda. Now, of course, they're following orders, but their agenda agrees with the government's agenda. Mark Carney's agenda and the CFIA, they are totally in sync with each other because they both want to destroy farmers and farmland and farms. That's what they're all about. So, Jerry estimated the operation, the invasion, the occupation of Universal Ostrich Farms was costing about $100,000 per day. He admitted that might be a conservative estimate. Well, it's probably costing a lot more, actually. It costed a lot more. Looky here. And look at how the CFIA has been up to its elbows in potential conflict of interest. It deals with a firm called Ferris Incorporated in Calgary for its supply of CO2, carbon dioxide. In 2025, from January to June, these 6 contracts totaled $228,009.73. That's $250,000 in just the first half of the year, all for liquid CO2 supply to CFIA labs. Look at that. Here it is. Interesting timing, given we were just talking about the CFIA getting essentially flat core funding in budget 2025. There it is. There it is. That's where they have been spending their money on CO2 gas. Is there a sweetheart deal going on here with Ferris Incorporated? Some people think so. Okay, CFI increased funding, and they got more money in the budget. They did such a great job at terrorizing the farm in Edgewood, BC, that they got more money. All new CFI allocations are targeted investments. They're investments for trade diversification and do not add to the 2025-26 baseline. $76 million over 5 years, starting in 26-27, for modernized digital trade tools, AI integration, and shifting to digital import-export certificates. $32.8 million over 4 years, plus $9.6 million ongoing to secure, expand, and restore market access for agri-food, fish, and seafood exports. In short, CFI's core operating budget is essentially flat year over year. Okay, but they're getting more money, right? Right. Now, this is interesting. Why are there 2 sets of contracts? We did a search yesterday with the government of Canada. Ferris Incorporated seems to, unless we're reading this wrong, seems to have invoiced the government of Canada twice. Total value of $42,000, total value of $42,000. Looks like they have trouble with their accounting. Maybe that's a polite way of saying it. There we are again. $20,262.69. Once again, 2 of them. Are they asking for it twice? Are they double billing, as we used to say? There's more. Search contracts over $10,000. You can look this all up yourself. I'm not making this up. These are not the same. Total value $70,000. But they have been going to town. What have they done from June to November? Well, I'm sorry, we couldn't find that information. They're a sole source contract for the CFIA. Oh, that never goes well, does it? When it's a sole source contract? And of course, you could read all about Ferris Incorporated here. But nobody had to bid for the contract with the CFIA. They gave it to Ferris. Why? We have to wonder, why would you do that? Why is this sole source contract? Is there nobody else delivering the service? Or does Ferris deliver a flexible service? You know what I mean. Is that what's going on here? Why it's a sole source contract? Official PSPC rationale. CFIA's National Center for Animal Disease in Ottawa requires emergency liquid CO2 deliveries within 4 hours for humane euthanasia chambers. Animal welfare regs demand no delays that could cause suffering. Oh, is that why they're causing suffering in Edgewood, BC right now? Big players like Lind Canada, Air Liquid, and Prax Air, now Lind, have zero CO2 production in Eastern Ontario. Nearest plants are 500 to 800 kilometers away. Proof it's truly exclusive. Search the entire Open Canada.com for any CFIA CO2 contract containing Lind, Praxair, Air Zero, Methason, or even generic carbon dioxide supply. 0 hits outside Ferris. So they didn't even try. Other federal departments, D&D, CSC, ECCC, buy small cylinder CO2 from Lind, Air Liquid, but never the high volume liquid bulk that CFIA needs. No competitive tender has ever been issued for this requirement. Every single liter of CO2 used in CFIA labs the past 7 years and projected for the next 5 comes from one company only, Ferris Incorporated. That's why the 2025 spike to about $275,000 annualized from 220 to 240K is raising eyebrows. Same monopoly, same labs, suddenly 38% more gas in just 10 months. Why the spike matters? Actual usage exceeded the 2024 forecast by 41%. They're gassing more animals. That's what they're up to. In plain English, yeah, they're gassing more animals. The CFIA is euthanizing a lot more animals in 2025 than any previous year. And Ferris Incorporated is the only company in Canada legally allowed to sell them the gas. So the CFIA does not put any of this in a public website. I'm putting it up publicly right now for all of you to see. The standing offer contains a hidden emergency clause that explicitly allows CFIA inspectors to order Ferris trucks to private farms during, quote, reportable disease eradication events, unquote. Exact wording from the 2023 sole source justification. That's exact wording. So there could be a Ferris van coming to a farm near you as they decide, hey, your animals are sick. Oh, sorry, they're not. Well, they might be. We're going to kill them anyway. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're sick. That's the policy, to kill your animals. In the event of a large-scale outbreak of a reportable zoonotic disease, e.g., avian influenza H5N1, African swine fever, the rest, liquid CO2 shall be delivered directly to affected premises for on-farm depopulation when electrical stunning or firearms methods are not feasible or would pose unacceptable biosecurity risks. Oh, how nice they're concerned about biosecurity risks. Once again, CFI does not put this on the public website. That clause was activated 41 times in 2025 so far. Each on-farm call-out uses 800 to 1,200 kilograms of CO2, carbon dioxide per visit, enough for 3,000 to 5,000 broiler chickens or 400 to 600 pigs in a mobile gas chamber. That's why the 2025 spending is suddenly 38% higher. CFIA is gassing entire barns on private farms, not just lab mice. And every single liter still comes from Ferris Incorporated because no other company in Canada has the tankers, the permits, or the 4-hour response time CFIA demands when they roll up to a farmer's gate with a depopulation order. Incredible. Interesting. Impacted killed in 2025. These are largely chickens. Died plus depopulated. Died plus murdered by the CFIA. British Columbia, 8,050,000 birds. Alberta, 1,210,000. Saskatchewan, 890,000. Manitoba, 1,670,000. How come the number just drops by 100% or more when you get to central Ontario, central Canada? Ontario, 180,000. Quebec, even half of that, 95,000. Labrador, Newfoundland, Labrador, 34. The mass amount of these killings are occurring in Western Canada, where the Liberals sometimes have trouble getting votes. The lowest, good old Maritime Canada, Liberal land. And of course, Quebec comes in second because God knows the Liberal government will never want to upset Quebec. Very telling. So here it is. Canada, 12 million chickens killed by CFIA and Ferris in 2025. British Columbia, 8 million. Alberta, 1.2. We just showed you that. Saskatchewan, 890,000. Those are the top three. Well, actually, Manitoba should be in there too. Yeah, and here's our slide again from BC Barracuda. This is interesting. Avian flu has broken out at least 8 locations, but here's the debate. In general, if a chicken is properly cooked, meaning it reaches an internal temperature of at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, it is considered safe to eat. However, if the bird was infected with avian flu, it is typically culled to prevent the spread of the disease. It's always best to support poultry from reputable suppliers and follow local health headlines. So there is a debate going on actually between whether or not it's safe to eat a chicken that has had avian flu or it's not safe. So I'm not gonna get into that debate right now. Here's another outrage. Health Canada to allow cloned meat sales with no labeling, leaving consumers in the dark. Wow. Meat from cloned cattle and pigs can be sold without special labeling, treating it the same as conventionally bred meat. Do you think that's acceptable? I don't. Wow. So I hope you enjoyed that little lesson today. That was a hell of a lot of research. Thanks to my producer for doing just about all of that. And what's happening on this farm is absolutely ridiculous. I'll be back with some concluding remarks and where we're going from here after this message. Thanks for watching today. And before I go, I want to say a couple of things. I was on Redacted yesterday. I hope you all saw the show. Clayton has been a huge supporter of the story. Clayton and Natalie Morris, huge supporters of this story. Redacted has been there. They've had Katie on numerous times. Every time I'm on in the last month, 6 weeks, they've allowed me to talk about Universal Ostrich Farms and the horrific events that are going on there. The Supreme Court order yesterday, and I was right about this when I read it. I've had this confirmed. It's not only dismissing the appeal, but it's forcing the farm to pick up the legal costs from the federal government. God only knows what that's going to amount to. You know how much lawyers are. How much is that going to cost them? Well, support this farm. We're going to put the information in again. Save our ostriches. Support this farm. We're going to keep fundraising for Universal Ostrich Farms. And we're going to keep fighting the CFIA. We're going to keep revealing what they're up to, like contracts that they have with Ferris Incorporated, like how they have totally violated the terms of that Supreme Court order and they got away with it, they think. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to keep going after them along with Katie. We're going to be hand in hand fighting the CFIA and ensuring there's no cover-up and they are held accountable for their actions on this farm and God knows at other farms across Canada, especially Western Canada. We're not going to allow this to turn into a cover-up. This is absolutely BS in the strictest, strongest, most strident terms I can put it. And that's what's going on here. This is government bullshit. Government lies, mendacity, cheating, corruption. This is all this thing has ever been about. Nothing to do with science. And when Sean Fraser tells you something has to do with science, you know it doesn't. Because this is a man who can't barely tie his own shoes. So don't think we're going to give up. We're going to keep watching. Keep Katie and her family in your prayers. This is a brave and courageous woman. Her mother, brave and courageous woman. They're not giving up. God knows the government wants to destroy them. It wants to absolutely grind them into their farmland earth. But they're saying we're fighting back. And so are we here at Stand on Guard. It ain't over yet. Thanks for watching, folks. Thank you for sharing this station with your friends and family. Thank you for hitting that like button because I tell you, We are fighting back in a way I've never had to before, because I'm going to keep this station on the air. I'm going to keep fighting for freedom. I'm going to keep fighting for justice and truth. And I am damn determined to resist this Carney government in any way possible as it encroaches upon our individual freedom. And it will continue to do that, mark my words. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. 10 a.m. This has been David Krayden, broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Resolve to resist